So back in 2020, I, Steven Shinder, started a podcast called Delayed Replay, recapping and reviewing the latest films. However, it got broadcast into an alternate universe where those films got delayed and came out differently from how I was describing them. Because of how me and my guests had been describing the films, people in that other universe were saying that this was all an improvised comedy podcast, which, listening back, I can totally get why they believe that. A lot of weird stuff happened in that first year, and I even met my other self from that other universe, who pops in from time to time, for better or worse. And now, in the year 2023, this podcast continues, still recapping and reviewing movies and sometimes some other things that got delayed or cancelled in that other universe. A new episode Saturdays every other week, unless I decide otherwise for some special reason or whatever. You are listening to Delayed Replay, Season 4.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, as always, Steven Shinder, and joining me for this episode on Wonka, the Willy Wonka origin movie that's just come out in our universe recently, it is my stepmom, Nja Onê. How's it going?
Hello, and thank you so much for inviting me. This is one of my favorite topics. So thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll start by talking about, because this movie isn't just out of nowhere. It has its source material and then its adaptations and whatnot.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
what was your and we'll touch upon like a little bit of the like controversial aspects, but what was your like introduction to the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory slash Willy Wonka franchise type thing?
Like, even though it came out when I was younger, I didn't go see it. I didn't think it was my jam at the time. And so I didn't really see the movie for the very first time until it was on television. And I fell madly in love at the very first one. I thought it was just so magical. And I was like, why did I deny myself this pleasure earlier? But maybe it was the way it was advertised at the time. I'm not sure, but it just didn't seem like something I'd be interested. But fell madly in love after that.
Right. Yeah, and it's based on a so the first movie is called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory because from what I remember, I remember hearing that they wanted to name it after the candy, like the candy man Willy Wonka, as opposed to giving it the title of the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
That's true.
Yeah, and the first time I saw that first movie, I think I was in like second or third grade or something. Like we were
Mm.
watching it in some classroom, and yeah, it had like this magical feel, but also like that creepy tunnel sequence. It was just so bizarre, but it also like left an impression, and it was a musical. It was like, it's not a movie you forget, is it?
No, it's not. Did you know that they didn't tell the actors of that movie what was going to be shown? And so their reactions during that crazy boat ride is real. No one
Oh,
knew of, yeah, they didn't know of, oh, come on, the star. He knew and the directors knew, but the
uh,
other actors had no idea.
yeah, Gene Wilder.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and Gene Wilder has become such a meme, like the frame of him in the movie with like the smug look, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh, you think blah blah blah. Tell me this. It's like a whole meme, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I seen a few of them. Yeah, very creepy and very cool at the same time.
yeah. But I remember when I was like much more like a littler kid, I might have seen like some of those commercials where they advertise Wonka inspired candy like Laffy Taffy and
Hmm.
Nerds and stuff like that. And they have like the animations where it looks like they're pretty much modeling Willy Wonka after the Gene Wilder portrayal.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they did. They did. They actually changed it around. Well, the movie was so popular, so why not? Got the kids to buy the candy.
yeah, like that was a portrayal that everyone got so familiar with. And I think that even today, if you were to say the name Willy Wonka to someone who knows, like even just a casual movie viewer, like I'm pretty sure the Gene Wilder portrayal would be the first face to come to mind, don't you think?
I think so. I think so. It's pretty much stamped in everyone's imaginations now that they don't even think about anything else or anybody else's version, which I must say I am not. I don't know if I'm in the majority or the minority, but I am not a fan. I am not a fan of the second one.
Oh yeah, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Yeah,
Boo is.
yeah. I think I think you're in the majority because, like, I think generally people prefer the Gene Wilder one. Um, but for me personally, I get kind of nostalgic thinking of, the 2005 one. This was like 34 years after the original, so or the first film adaptation. So like I remember there was speculation that because of the title, people were thinking, "Oh, is this gonna be about Charlie when he's older and he owns the chocolate factory?" But it's like, no,
Yeah.
this is just another adaptation. I think the first time I ever knew about that film was when my mom got me a subscription to Disney Adventure magazine, and so in those, like the January, February issue or whatever, there was like a look ahead at the upcoming 2005 films, and
Mhm.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was one of them. And you also had like Revenge of the Sith, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Zathura, I think was in there too.
Mm.
Like some of the films that year kind of defined my childhood, and that there were some
Mm.
that I would probably sort of forget about, like Racing Stripes. I haven't watched that one since it came out, and it probably not like it if I watched it now, is I'm guessing. But when me and my mom watched the Johnny Depp one, I remember really enjoying it, and I enjoyed subsequent viewings of it as well
Hmm.
over the years. But like for me and my mom as well, like we really liked how in the Johnny Depp one, they weren't trying to do the exact same thing. They made it so that the lesson at the end was like more about family and choosing family over like being rich and famous and having fortune and whatnot. And
That's
they
true.
and they even talk about Charlie's, like, or sorry, Willie. They give Willie a backstory with Christopher Lee as his dentist
Yeah,
father. And
that was wild. When I saw that part, I was like, "Ee," that was very, very interesting just to see it. But don't you think that was a possible missed opportunity to continue the story? Because when I heard that it was coming out, that's what I thought. I said, "Oh my God, what a great way to continue and have Charlie as the person that now it needs to find someone else to run the
yeah,
factory." I thought that would be such a great premise. And then I went, "What's happening?" So I was
right,
and
because I know I've never read the books, but I would see that they're in my elementary school library now and
mhm,
then. So there's a first book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and there's a second one called Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator.
mhm.
And the only thing I know about it is like Charlie, I guess, goes to the White House. I don't really know much about it beyond that. But but yeah, I do think like a distant continuation where it's Charlie and he's all grown up and in charge. I think that could make an interesting premise. But there were some quirky things I liked about the 2005 one. Like I'll admit that the way that they modeled Willy Wonka's look was like didn't really work like for the most part, but there
Mm.
were some funny things he did every now and then, like when the dad, the spoiled girl's dad would give him a business card and he just like tosses it like without looking at it, and
Yeah, exactly.
it's like you have to pause and notice it type thing.
Mhm.
So there were like some things I thought were funny, and this will probably sound blasphemous, but I prefer the Oompa Loompa music in the 2005 one, because in the 71 version, like it's kind of all the same, but in the 2005 one, you got all these different genres like bubblegum pop, rock and roll type thing.
That's
So,
true.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I think for me, I prefer the 2005 one a bit, but the 1971 version definitely gets like the pure wonder and imagination part.
Yeah,
Like the 2005 one leans more into the eeriness of it, I
that's true.
guess.
Yeah,
And
you're right. You're right.
yeah, but
Yeah.
but yeah, you're not like a huge fan of the 2005 one, right?
Not really. Even though I do take I agree with you with certain points of the movie that was really interesting. It's just the other part of it just seemed a little bit, and maybe I do have built-in bias, and I know that I accept it and I wear that crown with glory. But it just seemed I was like, yeah. And you know what? Because I built it up so much in my own mind that it was going to be a continuation. So when I found that it wasn't, and I looked at it, that was me. That was me. So I already have built-in prejudice, which I'm so sorry. 2005 movie. So,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
did. It was just so. But I do agree with you when it comes to the music. That was really
Mhm.
interesting. That was nice that they had put a different take. But what do you think about them using the same character and just multiplying his image and having the Oompa Loompas look exactly the same?
Yeah, when I watched the special feature on the DVD about that when I was a kid, I thought it was really cool. But looking back, like it kind of felt like what they did with Tamura Morrison in the Star Wars prequels, right? When they like had all
Ah,
those
yes,
clones.
yes, yes.
But I feel like if you look into like the origins of like, you know, Oompa Loompas like in the original version of the
Hmm.
book, I feel like if one has that in mind, there are kind of like unfortunate implications that like all Oompa Loompas look the same. So I think that's something that hasn't aged well. I guess while we're on it, we could mention how like, you know, the controversy, you know, Roald Dahl, the author of the book, from what I could tell, like he seems to be it seems like he was anti-Semitic when he was alive, and
Hmm.
um in the original edition of the book, the Oompa Loompas were described as black pygmies, and then later editions they changed them to like rosy skinned, like hippie type
Yeah,
characters. But like the whole
yeah,
thing of like having them all work for him, like it was just like bad vibes all around. So
yeah.
um they do something interesting, somewhat different in this new one that we're talking about, at least in our
Hmm.
universe. But
Yes.
yeah, like what are your thoughts on like the Oompa Loompas in general, like the idea of them like prior to this one?
Prior to this movie,
Yeah.
the first one, I just thought they were really cute.
Mm,
So the very first one was, oh, look at them, they're so cute. They're just walking around, they look all orange. Oh, look at that. And
yeah.
that was it. I like their little dance too. I like the dance they did. I used to walk around once, and I was older, and I'm walking around the house. Who are you, the judge? So anyway, but I'm walking around doing oompa, and I'm dancing around
Yeah.
doing the oompa loompa dance. I thought it was just so cute. The second one, I don't know that I still have that disconnect. They still had the little something going on, but the first one, so my impression of the Oompa Loompas were just they were just adorable. The second
Okay.
one seemed a little more menacing for some unknown reason, even though
Yeah,
it just seemed a little scary. But the first one, yeah,
it's
it
the
was
Tim
cute.
Burton vibe, you know.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I was like, I don't know. What's happening? But maybe some of the person that's doing this new version, maybe part of that is what some of their inspiration.
Yeah, so I guess we could get into it. So
Mm.
the origin movie Wonka, directed by Paul King. So
Mm.
this one takes place in the 50s, and as you alluded to, like some of it feels like a totally different genre than we're used to, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I was really impressed with the fact that it seemed like he took some really interesting points from the first and the second movie and
Mm.
used that to inspire him to make this whole other take on the Oompa Loompas and Charlie. And I was like, wow, I would have never thought of doing that. And I was really impressed with how he came up with that premise. Excellent, excellent work. And a little frightening too.
Right, because um we were talking before about how like before we got on the call, how it feels kind of like a horror movie in places. Like Willy Wonka is basically um well, in this version he's like a candle salesman, like that's his like normal job at first, like when we first see
Hmm.
him starting out, but he gets like really curious and like sort of wants to like get rich quick, and so he wants to go exploring, and he has like these ideas of like getting some people to work for him, even if it's like by force type thing.
Hmm.
So right away, like this isn't a very endearing version of Willy Wonka. It's very different from what we're used to.
Exactly. It's kind of like, yeah, like modern day slavery. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? And is that how you're going to get rich, by just pulling these poor people into your thing, so you're going to have them just work for you? And then what's about, and why would he use mushrooms in the first place? Is he using mushrooms to help drug them or something? What, it just, all this stuff just seems pretty weird.
Yeah, and at this point I'm thinking, is he gonna make like some mushroom inspired candy? Like what's going on here? Um
Exactly. Ooh.
and like
And
Timothy Chalamet has like, even in Dune, he kind of had this look where it's like you could totally imagine him as like a gothic, creepy person, and he gets all those vibes here as well, which is really weird.
But I'm wondering how much money did they offer him for him to walk away from his veterinary business? What got him to say, guess what? I'm out of here. What did they back up a truckload of money and said, get in here and make this done? And he did it. And you know what? Regardless that he's been away from the acting for such a long time, he did an amazing job. He really was just able to snap right back in and make that character his own. I was highly impressed.
Yeah, and so they go to this they kind of make it ambiguous like where this land of Oompa Loompas is, but it looks like this island, and they do this thing where instead of them all looking the same, it looks like they're each of different shapes and sizes and different
Mhm.
ethnicities, and they have like their own culture,
Mhm.
and some of it is very much based around candy. And so that's when, Willy Wonka, when he sees them, he's basically an opportunist. He sees
Mm.
dollar signs, and he's like, I'm gonna like bring some of these people with me and have them work for me. And what did you think of that approach to this?
I'm trying to figure out, how did he use that? What did he use to just bring them along, and say, hey, come on? What did he offer them to make them want to do that? And is there such a thing as such a great offer? Well, you know what? Maybe it's in history. So how did they get other people to come here for what kind of promise? And obviously he promised them something, but isn't it interesting they didn't show exactly what that was? And they let everyone be very curious about exactly how did he get them to do it. I find that fascinating too, because you use your imagination. What was it so that these people said, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going to go with this guy?
Yeah, because you can imagine that maybe he told them about like what life in where he's from is like. They kind of keep it ambiguous whether he's from
Yes,
like an American place or a British place. It kind of feels like a melding of the two. But
absolutely.
maybe there are some people, some Oompa Loompas who want to like go somewhere new. But there's also like speculation that maybe the ring that Willy Wonka's wearing throughout the movie, maybe there's like some sort of power to that. It's very weird. He feels like this sort of Dracula, Dr. Frankenstein type character in this movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe that has something to do with it too, that he was able to mesmerize these poor people and come in. But how they changed after they got there, I would have never saw that coming. And oh my goodness, they changed into this otherworldly creature. I don't know if you want to give away too much. What's up to you?
Right, yeah. So he kind of turns them into these because he straps them and experiments on them. He injects
Mm-hmm.
them with like different types of chemicals mixed with melted candy. It's
Oh,
really weird, but
gross.
um he turns them into these sort of hulking brute like monsters, kind of like trolls, and so they
Mm-hmm.
are sort of subservient to him. It's very different from what we're used to. Like they're not all short, they're like so big and brooding, and so they're able to like pull stuff along and build the factory. And it's like kind of no one's like questioning this. They're just like, uh, he's getting some investors and they're just like
Mm.
all going along with it. And it's like, how much power does he have? It's absurd.
Yeah, do you think, they suggested this, but they didn't really show it? Do you think that it's possible that he put some kind of like made some kind of a blood candy? And
Yeah.
so that when they ate the candy and it had that blood that brought on that other thing and it gave you like a thirst. Is that possible? Because they don't really show it. They show this red thing, this red ingredient, this red liquid, but they don't really tell you exactly. And then all of a sudden it turns into this crazy, and you see them starting to morph and change. And it was really freaked out. That part, I got a little nervous, a little scary. I just didn't expect that.
Yeah, and he's even trying to bribe them by like, sometimes he'll like hold up a red popsicle and you're like, oh, is
Mm.
this frozen blood? And he's like dangling in front of it.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh, all kinds of mind control going on in this movie. Good Lord.
Yeah. But like along the way, he builds a factory and they make all these different candies. They have like these candy necklaces and these circus peanuts.
Hmm. Bringing
And
it back old school, baby.
yeah. And like one of the investors is played by Rowan Atkinson,
Oh, wow.
Mr. Bean himself, which he says he's like really into the cocoa beans that
Mm,
Willy Wonka makes, which is, I guess, a little shout out there.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a character that you would never expect him to play in a movie. So I thought that was interesting casting as well.
Right, because I think lots of people are used to him being like a bumbling idiot type
Yeah.
character, but
Mm-hmm.
here he's kind of, they try to play him a bit more serious, but there's still like a bit of comedy in the ways that he interacts with Willy. Like you can tell like he's scared of Willy himself, as trying like
Mm-hmm.
not to get on his bad side.
I don't
Uh,
blame him.
yeah.
That was a little freaky. But yeah, I like the fact that they really did some out of the box casting for him. And
Yeah.
he could still bring a little bit of comedy, like you said, which was good because you need a little reprieve after the stuff that started going on in that movie. It started off one way and then it turned into this whole other thing, which was so unexpected. And honestly, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and actress Olivia Colman plays this woman who is kind of suspicious of what's going
Mm,
on at the factory, and so she tries to like sneak in there and see what's going on, and she's like horrified when she sees what's going on and tries to like cure one of these Oompa Loompas with like the devices that Willy has there before he like gets to the room. And when the Oompa Loompa like lets her know like what he remembers and how like, oh, Willy is working us over, and
yeah.
when that's when like they start like this subplot, which I've never expected from like the use of Oompa Loompas, but have kind of wanted, which is like, this workers' rights thing. Like, I mean, like, there's mind control going on, and that's like even more serious. But it's just kind of funny how the Oompa Loompas first thought is, oh, we need to get paid for like what we're doing. It's like,
They need to get cured and paid
yeah,
and escape. Well, what do you think when she was caught inside the factory? What do you think about that scene?
yeah, because they're being chased, and she falls into like this chocolate river, very kind of
Oh,
like what happens to Augustus Gloop, and like you
yep.
have that familiar imagery in your mind, and you're like, oh, is
Mm-hmm.
she gonna make it out? And like the tube is like coming down, and it's like really plays with like what the audience already knows and makes it
Yeah.
even more
Mm-hmm.
menacing in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. That was a freaky thing, but how she escaped from it was even more exciting. I didn't expect that either. Because she remember that boat that was in the original one?
Yeah.
And then she jumped on there But then the scenes, even though the original one that was pretty scary for its time, it was this whole other scene. It's just like it showed all the different things, that ways that he was torturing those poor Oompa Loompas, how he was working them, how they had nothing. It was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that either. It's kind of like she got a little a look behind the screen of all the stuff that's been going on in that factory.
Yeah, like this movie, like it's PG-13, but it's like really pushing it, and it's like I can't imagine anyone watching this and not being like scared at some of these moments. I was getting the heebie-jeebies at certain points. I
Absolutely.
was getting freaked out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't understand how they pulled that off. And yeah, how did they get that rating? Someone tell me.
Yeah.
'Cause some of that stuff was pretty sketchy there.
Yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, she tries to like get through the tunnel and, help these Oompa Loompas and um they go through like this giant like orchard type thing that has like giant blueberries and
Hmm.
like some of them are falling, so it's like again that familiar imagery, but you can also hear the blueberries whispering remember, so kind of a reference to member berries from South Park, I guess, playing with nostalgia, which I thought was kind of funny but and meta.
That you know what that this movie is so tripped out. It's a trippy movie. That's
Yeah.
what it is. They're doing all kinds of stuff to take everybody like, what's going on? But yeah, I like the fact is I don't know if you remember this old movie. It was called Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah, so believe it or not, I actually have never watched Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Like I've been aware of it for years, and as someone who likes both horror movies and schlocky, stupid B movies as long as they're funny, like it
Mhm.
sounds like it would be up my alley. So it's kind of surprising that I myself have never seen Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
You have to watch it. It's amazing. I love it. That's one of my favorites too. But the same thing when the blueberries are getting big and they're whispering, it reminded me of the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. It was like, oh my goodness, this guy took all these elements of all these different movies and put them in one. And who would have thought Willy Wonka and Oompa Loompas? You would have never put those together, and yet he found a way to make it all, I think, fit pretty well and very surprising and very entertaining too. It's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, and they even included because when Veruca Salt goes down the chute, they mention
Mm.
like the incinerator, and we never see it, like the garbage and the incinerator. But here we see it, and it's like even scarier than the incinerator in Toy Story 3. It's
Oh
nuts.
gosh. Exactly. Exactly. And yet it wasn't rated something else. How did they get away with this? They get away with it? That's what I want to know. Who got bought off? Let me stop. So it was really cool though. And but yeah, I like that. I like that. As it should. As it should show it. Oh, she's fine. Is she really? Is she? That's what they did on the first one, of course. Oh, she'll be everybody left and they were fine. Yeah, well,
Right.
this one, they let you know, no, it's not. That doesn't work that way. I love it.
Yeah, so what'd you think of like her fate and all this? Like how they handled that?
The lady that came in to try to rescue everybody, or
Yeah.
you know what? Sometimes when you're nosy, you get hurt. So I like that they didn't have that happily ever after ending.
Like the final
That
girl.
Yeah, exactly. Bum bum bum. She was able to stumble out. What's that movie? Then she always escapes. What is that? Whatever the heck, I don't know. But it's just enough. I'm glad that she didn't. I'm glad. I'm glad. And maybe that might not be popular, but those happily ever afters are. It's kind of boring, kind of cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, this feels very much like a cautionary tale, kind of like the Twilight Zone,
Mm,
which, I mean, here's a little tie. And, there's that comedy duo Key and Peele.
yeah,
Jordan Peele worked on the newer Twilight Zone that was out
that's right.
recently, and
Hmm.
his partner in that duo, Keegan Michael Key, is one of the characters in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and He's one of the Oompa Loompas, and Matt Lucas is as well. And they got a bunch of different actors of different backgrounds as the
Mm-hmm.
Oompa Loompas, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, part of it kind of felt like a classic Twilight Zone episode with some
Mm.
modern horror movie motifs, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
I agree, and still had that relevance of the workers' rights and
Yeah, like if
slavery and yeah.
yeah, like even after Olivia Colman like meets her fate, you still have the Oompa Loompas demanding, demand to be paid. We demand to be paid." And so, like, because of all this, like, to prevent them from rising against him, Willie, yeah, and one of the other actors in the movie plays Slugworth, and he's like, "They're right, you need to compensate them."
Hmm.
He's like his conscience type thing, but
Yeah.
Willie's like, "You're right, but in order to pay them, we need to boost our sales." And so that's when he gets the idea to like advertise the golden tickets, and that'll make the chocolate sales skyrocket, and that's how
Hmm.
he'll get more money to pay the
Hmm.
Oompa Loompas.
Have you ever noticed that when people buy the new candy with the golden ticket, that they're remember at the very end of the movie and their eyes start to change just a little bit after when they bite into the candy?
Yeah.
What did he put what did he put in that candy? What did he
Yeah.
put in that candy?
Yeah, that's a good point, because
Hmm.
their eyes change, and it's like, whoa, what did he put? Like some of those chemicals he puts in the Oompa Loompas, is he controlling
Hmm.
them, or is this just a commentary on how, like, is it just a metaphor of how like consumers become very rabid and
Hmm.
very greedy when there's a reward involved, and they just want to have it all type thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Or maybe he's doing a commentary on just junk food and can't remember the what comedian says, you take a bite of the oh, Bill Burr. He says,
Oh
but
yeah.
take a bite, Bill Burr of the food. I gotta have some more, and next thing you know, you're craving it. And maybe that's part of his commentary too.
Yeah, and there's like a montage of all the different Wonka products and all the different stores. There's like Wonka Pop, and it's like a type of soda. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's like Wonka popcorn, even. I guess it's kind of like kettle corn, but it was purple, which I thought was weird. Like,
Very weird. Oh my God, what kind of thing did you have to put in there to get that color?
yeah,
But yeah, he really expanded to so it can approach everybody's different tastes and really get them to buy his product. And of course, increase his sales tremendously.
yeah.
Freaky,
So
freaky stuff.
yeah, this is very much the scariest Willy Wonka there is. Like, they don't really make him that redeemable. Like, yeah, he gets like put in a corner to like try and pay the Oompa Loompas, but like, would he have done that had they not like come to their senses and like risen up against him? Like, I don't know.
You know what? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's a commentary on greed and wanting to be the first and having but he was started, and I think it's there's some trauma too because he was so poor when he was a child.
Yeah, very much like Charlie was like in.
Exactly.
You see how, like, I guess there are two different sides of a similar coin. They both come
Mm-hmm.
from poverty, but
Mm-hmm.
with Willie, Charlie becomes very good natured, but with Willie, here in this adaptation at least, you see
Mm-hmm.
how he, I guess, like, as he grew up, he became very envious and jealous of what everyone else had, and wanted to make a name and wealth of
Mm-hmm.
his own, like kind of like the dragon sickness in the Hobbit. Even like he's just and he's an opportunist. That's what he is in this version.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. But it's interesting how different things that happen to you in your childhood, and they use that as a premise too. Even if it's just a sub thing, it's still really, really fascinating how they did that. They was able to incorporate all these different aspects and really make a powerful commentary on today's world.
Yeah, and I think you were telling me earlier that there were like some messages you noticed in the Gene Wilder movie, right?
Absolutely. There's so many of them. Well, other than the usual, which it happened to each one of the kids, and
Right.
don't eat this and don't chew gum and blah 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 and
Yeah,
leave
they're each
television
like
alone. And
the deadly sins or whatever.
yes, exactly. So just aside from that, you know what? I'm gonna just go just a little bit off a little teeny bit, because remember when Charlie and the grandpa was in the room with the soda pop and
Yeah,
had all the bubbles everywhere, right? But they didn't get kicked out. They didn't
right.
get kicked out. Yeah, I was like, well, isn't that one of the things that they said don't touch, and they touched it
Yeah,
anyway?
like at the end of that movie, I if I remember correctly, Willie knew about it somehow, and that's why he's like, no, you didn't win or whatever. And but
Mm-hmm.
then Charlie gives him like the gobstopper that Willie
Right.
gave him, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when Willie realizes Charlie is not greedy as he thought, and he's good natured, and that's why he gets the factory type thing.
Yeah, but still, and didn't that like the double standards a little bit? Just my thing. Anyway, so that was one. So if you tell the truth and you want to be honest, then all of a sudden that'll supersede anything else, even though you broke a rule. I just find it interesting. That's all. But my favorite one, my favorite one is the Wonka Vader. That was to me was the most, and I'm trying not to get emotional. It's an emotional thing for me, because the one thing that he says at the very end of the movie, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so sweet. It goes, you know what happens to the little boy that gets everything? And he just goes, what? Or he didn't say anything, just looks. And he says he lives happily ever after. I cried. And matter of fact, every time I see that movie, I cry like a baby. I said, yes, it's possible. It's impossible. Yeah. But it was so, I love that part. And for me, that was the best message, that, yeah, you can have all your dreams. All your dreams can come true, but you have to understand it, know it, and make it real. And I just, get me started. That's my favorite. So for me, that was the biggest lesson in the original one. All that other stuff, yeah, okay, fine. But that Wonka Vader, that was it for me. I love that doggone thing. So sweet.
Yeah. And I think that type of scene is tough to replicate, which I guess is why I appreciate that the 2005 one tried something different, like was trying to go for a different wholesome message that was more about family. Like it definitely had its flaws, but that's just like the main thing I appreciate about
Mm,
that one.
yeah.
And like for the musical aspects of the Gene Wilder one, like I said that like the Oompa Loompa songs don't really do much for me, but I do like the songs that the normal people sing, like Cheer Up Charlie, the Candy Man, or when the grandpa is like, I got a golden tick, and he gets out of his
I
bed.
love that. I
Um,
love that one
yeah,
too.
and I love how in like the 2005 one they kind of subvert your expectations of that. Like when the grandpa sees the ticket, he's like yippee, and he jumps out of bed. You expect like the song again, but he just does like an awkward dance with like no music, and it's like yeah, that's how it would look realistically, and it was
I
just
guess,
funny.
and the 2005 grandpa, he scared me.
Oh really?
He looks terrible. He looked terrible. I was like, oh my God, somebody give that man a sandwich. He looked
Oh
terrible.
yeah,
He
I
was,
mean,
oh,
yeah, I mean, he seemed like, well, as a kid and even now, I didn't see him as scary per se, but he seemed, I guess, fragile is what they were going for. Like,
yeah.
they're living in poverty, and he's very good natured, and he knows that Charlie is a sweet boy, but like he's like got nothing much going on for him in his life. And it's like seeing the factory again, because in that version he worked for Willy Wonka, and it's like seeing the factory again would bring him more joy. So
You got a point. You got a point. He scared me. He did. I said, oh, this man is so bony. And he just looks frightening. Someone please give him something to eat. He just looks, and being that hungry and then going into the factory, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to chomp up all that food, right? And
right.
what's going on? That's what I would have thought. I was like, running and grabbing chocolate and shoving it in his face. But, anyway, that's me. What can I say?
Right.
But no,
But
I
but
I do I still, even though I'm grateful that you brought in the other points for the 2005, so maybe I'll watch it
yeah,
again.
I
Maybe.
mean, I'm not expecting to like change how much you like it, but I feel like because I'm in the minority, I sometimes feel like I have to explain what I like about it, and it's like I love both of those versions, the 1971 and 2005 ones. It's just
Hmm.
um there were certain things about the 2005 one that drew me in a little bit more, and part of it is probably like a generational thing, or maybe not, because like even some people of my generation are like, "You're nuts!" Like the 71 version is the better one. But
But I appreciate the fact that at least I'm willing to watch it again, and I
mm,
don't mind that. So I'm grateful that you at least gave me some pointers where I'm interested in watching it. Where before, if it, I was like, oh, please no, So I'm
yeah,
I'm grateful for that.
yeah, I mean, Tim Burton can sometimes be an acquired taste, and he's not always a home run. Like
No,
there's that Planet of the Apes reimagining, whatever, just wasn't very good.
whew, that's a whole nother thing. Well,
Yeah,
let me know when you want to invite me back for that. But that was something, and then there was some really interesting things in it, and there was some things that was just wow.
yeah, like there were some interesting ideas, and it got what they were going for with the ending, but they didn't like fully explain it. And like it had interesting ideas, but the tone felt like not as philosophical as the other films, that to the point where it
Yeah.
felt like you could have titled it parody of the Planet of the Apes, and it would have
Oh,
been a
yeah,
fitting
that's
title
true.
for it.
That's
Um,
true.
yeah.
No, I like that. I want to bring up one more thing because I really like the way this, you know, Wonka. So I like the fact that they did the way they filmed the movie too. It was really, I found it very elegant. It reminded me of Sin City because they
Mm,
took all the elements of the black and white and just gave these little splashes of color, which I found incredibly fascinating. I love Sin City. I love the way it was filmed. And this guy, he was inspired by so many different things. I'm just impressed. But he actually did those really beautiful grays and black tones and just gorgeous, just beautifully filmed, and threw in those little splashes of color just to give you that
yeah.
pop, give you that inspiration. Oh wow, this is that. I love that. Which I found it fascinating.
Yeah, like the black and white made it feel, sometimes it felt like a classic movie, sometimes it
Yeah,
felt like a horror movie,
yeah,
and like they would
absolutely.
add color for like whenever they'd introduce the different types of candy and sweets and whatnot. And
Hmm.
that, like visually, that was done very well, because you'd have like the contrast of like, these colorful foods surrounded by very gray
Yeah,
backgrounds and stuff.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
was very impressive.
Yeah, I thought so too. That I think if I was going to pick one thing that really, really impressed me with this whole thing was, well, two things. I'm going to pick two. One, all the different inspirations that he was able to draw from, and two, the look of the film. I don't know how much it cost to be made, but whatever it was, they spent the money very wisely. It looks really, really, really good.
Yeah. So, was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we go over final thoughts on this film and give it a score?
I'm just grateful that they brought the story of Willy Wonka, even though it's this guy's vision of it. I'm glad that they brought it to audiences today. And maybe, just like me, I'm willing to look at the 2005 version and go back and watch the original and watch that one again, just to have that a context to compare it all, and even if it's totally left field, to understand where the subject matter really, where it came from. Oh, one more thing.
Yeah.
Did you know that Sammy Davis Jr. was supposed to star as the Candyman in the very first movie?
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. But they
Oh.
didn't want him.
Oh, how come?
Brown skin.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that deep?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, and in the 2005 one, there's a Candyman who doesn't have as big of a role, but the actor who plays him in that one is black, so it's
Isn't that interesting?
yeah, it's
That's interesting,
interesting.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then he recorded the song Candyman became a big hit. But originally, yeah, he wanted to play it and they said no.
Interesting.
Sign of the times. But yeah, there's a
Yeah.
little interesting fact. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, I just remembered like the part where like there's like a honeycomb in the factory and some menacing bees. It kind of reminded me of the Candyman horror slasher movies. Like it just reminded me of
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's right. That's right. My goodness, what an interesting movie.
Yeah.
I love this. I love it. It's so much to really unpack. That's what I like about it the most, because you have all these different genres, different ideas, and yet he was able to put it in. I think it was very seamless.
Yeah. It's very much like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Good. That was a good one. That was a good one. Yes.
All right, so I guess we can go into final thoughts. So, what are your
Mhm.
final thoughts on Wonka and your score out of 10 and your unit of measurement for the score? So, it can be like an object that's related to the movie.
I would go 8 out of 10, and I'm just giving it a little bit of a breather. I only watched it twice. I think I want to watch it again
Mm.
just to make sure that I got all the different things in it. And that's the only reason why it's an 8 instead of a 10. Other than that, and I'm judging it on the look of the film. I'm a very visual chick, so I love the look of it. I love how it was filmed. I love the processing of it. I love the director's take was so original and very inspiring, and all the different aspects and different movies and different things that he was able to include in the movie in a seamless manner. So for that, it's definitely worth another watching, and it's a 8 out of 10 in my book. 8 out of 10 Oompa Loompas.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was also thinking 8 out of 10 for this, like 8 out of 10 blueberries.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like this was, and again, I'm not sure what I would score the other one. Maybe the other ones I'd rate a little bit higher, but this was definitely a fresh take. And you know, it kind of reminded me, you know, recently there was that movie Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, where because you know the original Winnie the Pooh books became public domain, so someone like went nuts and just made it into a slasher movie.
No.
And like almost everyone hates the movie, but I just thought it was so stupid but funny, because like the way that the film is like the characters are like acting all seriously, but like everyone making the movie is in on the joke of like how
Yeah.
stupid it is, right? Like Winnie the Pooh and Piglet like killing all these people, and Christopher Robin being like, Pooh, I never would have left you. And it was just so funny to me. So like that one, I think I gave like a 7 out of 10, but I give Wonka an 8 out of 10 because it feels more thoughtful and like it's trying to say something. Like there's not really a message in Blood and Honey, but here there's like a lot of interesting commentaries and messages, and the use of the Oompa Loompas, like how they use them, like I don't know what the most correct way to use them is, but this was definitely a thought-provoking one. Like it really makes you think and reflect on like the other versions.
I agree.
Yeah, this is definitely one I would watch again, and I like that it's different from the others. It's out of left field from like what we expected, but it was a thrilling ride for me.
Yeah, like Blood and Honey. Yeah, no, it's very cool. And I would recommend it. I would like people to go check it out and come to their own conclusions and what they think. Hopefully, it's not too out of the box that they wouldn't enjoy it, but it's you walk in with an open mind.
Yeah. All right, so I guess that'll do it. Thanks for joining me on this episode, Nja. Did you want to plug anything?
Oh, well, thank you. So you can visit me on Facebook at The Art of Nja Onê, where I highlight all the different things I do, my art, my paintings. I do designs for Vegas performers and weddings, and oh my goodness, and drum roll somebody. Thank you. I'm getting ready to debut a line of home interiors. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm working on it right now, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I've had this idea for so long, and I finally get an opportunity to make it. So it's going to be fun. Uh, 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 uh. So there you go.
Nice. And yeah, this episode was a good one to record for Easter as it is today, because people associate Easter with like sweets and stuff. So
Oh, that's right.
yeah,
That's right. Very
we
well.
didn't plan that. It just ended up happening.
That's
But
correct. That's correct.
yeah, and I guess like now that I've said that, people can probably figure out that like a previous episode, the announcement, it was an April Fool's Day joke, and like yeah, so this wasn't pre-recorded before that. It was a
Yeah.
joke and a delayed uh revelation that it was a joke, very on brand for delayed replay. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Which I thought was very, very clever, but we know who got fooled. But
Yeah. Yeah, like a universe where this podcast is fictional. I mean, maybe there is a universe like that, but I mean, yeah. Well, that was a fun episode. What a weird movie. I mean, there are even some giant gummy worms, kind of like the worms from Dune, and during the chase, they got shrunk by the thing that they use on Mike TV. But yeah, really great episode. Yeah, there will be another one 2 weeks from today. I won't say what it is yet. And as for the trivia sprinkled throughout this one, it might be hard to find some of it depending what universe you're in, but maybe there's some truth to it in one or both universes, and at least it's like stuff to think about. This was some very thought-provoking stuff and a great topic to talk about. And full disclosure, I'm in a rush right now, so check the show notes, the links I'm adding to there later. All right, and back to the episode ending. And yeah, I guess that's everything. So thanks again for joining me, Nja Onê, and without further delay, have a good day.
oh, thank you. And thank you for the invitation. It was a lot of fun. Thanks.